Thank you so much to Salivary Gland Cancer UK for inviting me today. I honestly can't recommend the work that they do enough. Obviously I'm here because I'm a Member of Parliament and I'm also a member of the Health and Social Care Select Committee, and I've championed in Parliament the Rare Cancers Bill. But I'm also here because in January I lost my brother Alex English to high-grade actinic cell carcinoma, a cancer of the parotid gland, and because of that and the over 14 months he had of his illness, I suddenly, like many people in this room, became an expert in in rare and less treatable cancers in a way that I never really intended to. Cancer, I think, holds a special place in our psyche because, like no other disease, it feels like such an indiscriminate threat. In a world where we're used to being able to control basically everything, it feels like something that we increasingly can't control, and that's why the work of people in this room will save lives, but also help families feel more control over what they're facing and what they come across. Now, we know that while 47% of cancers are the cancers that are referred to as rare, they account for 55% of deaths of cancer. And frankly, we know that the only way to achieve the government's aim of driving up cancer survival rates is by making sure we actually get a proper focus on the rare cancers, be that bespoke treatments, understanding the patterns, or releasing some of the orphan drugs in order to open up some of that opportunity. There was just over a year between my brother's diagnosis and his death, and in some ways, because of the job I have, I've become an absolute expert in telling people about how he died. I've become used to telling people about the 14 hours of surgery that he had at the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle, and about the fact that when he first was diagnosed, he was told he had 20 years to live, and he said to me that it was actually quite good news because he'd never bothered to sort out his pension. And every time we got an update, I'm used to telling people that we got worse news because he was really unlucky, and I don't want people in this room to panic because there's only just over 100 cases have been diagnosed as the high-grade version of actinic cell carcinoma, which is the kind of fast mutating one for people like me who have no idea about the medicine stuff. I've been used to looking at the failures of the NHS around the system and the waits between scans and appointments and treatments, and I still occasionally find myself screaming into the void about that stuff, and I know that that's one of the things that we have to fix to make people's survival chances better. But it's also worth, when we have days like this, focusing on people's lives and who they were, because the most interesting thing about people shouldn't be how they die. And my brother led an extraordinary life. He was like a spare dad to me and my other brother. A wise head when we needed one, a sense of perspective when our single mum had frankly had enough of us. He was probably the funniest man I've ever met, a sense of humour which was somewhere between Nick Park and Eddie Izzard. Unfeignedly kind in a really annoying way that led to most women who ever met him falling deeply in love with him. He also had done every job known to man, and I honestly mean that. He ran a horse-drawn narrowboat company, he worked in a coal yard, he did a show on the Edinburgh Film Festival, he was even a rock star and toured Japan. He spent 20 years at the National Trust towards before becoming ill as well. And he gave all of us who loved him a lifetime full of memories. His best man speech to me, the time we got mugged at 4 a.m. in Paris having drunk quite a lot, the time he managed to blag us free tickets to the Royal Festival Hall to see Bradford Marcellus. Between my stories and other people's stories about Alex, it's a really good job that I'm the politician. And I was lucky to have a lifetime of memories with Alex in the 40 years of my life that I spent with him. One of my last happy memories was when he was in the advanced stages of his illness. We watched a Pixies concert in Halifax at the Peace Hall. We bundled him up in all of the warmest coats we owned, even though it was in August. And when they finished one of their particular hits, he looked at me and said, "I can die happy." And the work that's being done today is going to give people more memories and more life with people that they love. It's going to give people a better idea of the journey that they're on. and it's going to help us get immeasurably closer to the fact that people will be less scared and less uncertain when they get that diagnosis. So I couldn't be more proud to open this conference today to support salivary gland cancer and to be part of trying to find some of the cures that will make people's lives better. And now I've got to use a pair of scissors, which I'm not entirely sure if it's been okayed by health and safety, but this is going to go one of two ways. But I think we probably all need some light relief. So very happy to declare this open. Oh, they're cutting in everything. This is brilliant. There we go. Now, I know that it's incumbent on me when you've got a politician in the room that people want to hold us to account because that's our job. And obviously I'm a politician for the governing party, so I particularly deserve all the stick you can give me. So I know Rob's got a couple of questions for me, and I'm happy to kind of answer some questions as far as I know. Obviously, I work in the healthcare space as well in terms of my parliamentary work. So
yeah, one of the challenges we have treating patients with salivary cancers, like most other rare diseases or rare cancers, is often we have a knowledge that some drugs may benefit the patient in front of us, but we can't prescribe it because when it's a rare disease, the evidence is relatively less strong compared with more common cancers. And also the sort of all the regulation, the licensing and the reimbursement decisions within the NHS are haven't taken place. So I just wonder if you could comment about current work that's ongoing within the government to try and address those issues.
So the Rare Cancers Bill, which I hope people around here have heard of, has now passed its House of Commons stages, which is fantastic news. It's going through the House of Lords at the moment. Now, the idea of this bill was to actually kind of free up more time and resources in the health service so that we could focus on rare cancers. As I say, it accounts for 55% of deaths of cancer is the rarer forms. So getting that stuff right is probably is the route to having the real kind of shift that we need. Within that bill, there's a couple of things that are kind of relevant to Rob's question, but one of the main ones is freeing up what they call the orphan drugs, so the drugs that can work on another thing which are for one purpose. And that bill will make the process of licensing them a lot simpler and based on a lot less. It's also some stuff, though, frankly, that we can get on with before that bill's been passed, because the regulators know we're going to do it. I quite regularly, in my select committee role, meet with NICE, who decide whether we can afford drugs, and the MHRA, who do the regulation. And they know that that's one of the areas that they've got to focus on, and I think they are moving towards it. Hopefully, when we've got this bill passed, it means there's going to be a rare cancers champion in the Department of Health, and they're going to actually focus on making sure that these things are freed up. But that's going to be a key part. Another part is building that evidential basis. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to create a registry of studies, so all of the different studies that are going on of various forms of cancer, and a registry of patients. The NHS is terrible at data, as anyone who's ever tried to log on and book an appointment will know. And actually one of the things that they're trying to do is make sure that they build that up, because there might be a patient in Wales somewhere who's got a form of salivary gland cancer that Rob is the expert in the kind of oncology outcomes at the moment, or Rob's running a small study to see if a certain drug that usually works on breast cancer will work on that. And so that will open that up, so they'll say, hang on, we can make this person part of a study, and then the regulation is a lot less if someone is part of a study, because that's very much the nature of studies. And I certainly know that Alex would have taken any study he could get, because as he said, well, what have I got to lose?
So Shane's asked the question that this bill is currently going through Parliament. What timescales are we thinking about for?
It's got to be passed by the spring because obviously that's the end of this Parliament. It's in the House of Lords at the moment. The most tricky bit is the last day in the House of Commons because there's one MP that really likes to stop backbench bills going through. We got it through that moment, which meant that it's now going through to the next bit. So it is now in the House of Lords. Basically, the Lords have to pass it. They might make some changes. If they make some changes, we have to check them and send it back. That's usually a pretty quick process. And then once it's passed through both houses, fine. Then it goes to the King to sign on lambskin paper. I don't work in a sensible building. So it should be passed in the spring, but actually that won't stop us working on things before then to make sure that we're getting everything ready. And it's in some ways the fact it's already passed so far means the Department of Health need to get on with what they're working on, and that's something that we're kind of pushing on with already.
Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll ask one question, which is, you said 50, up to half of cancers almost are classed as rare cancers, but salivary cancers are a fraction of that. How do we ensure that salivary gland cancers still aren't lost within that, other than having days like this and organisations like this? What is the best way for us to make sure that we have visibility as the salivary gland cancer community?
I think, you've just answered your own question, I'm afraid. Make as much. I looked up at Hansard, which is like the record of everything that's been said in Parliament, and there have been 5 mentions of salivary gland cancers in the last 30 years in Parliament, and 3 of them have been me. So it is really important that we actually start, we talk about it and we make sure that we're having awareness events like this. I'm happy for as long as I've not been kicked out by the great British public to make a fuss about this, and that's part of my role. But actually, the more we can do to say, these are very treatable cancers where if we get it, if we can just get the focus. So it's just making a fuss. If you've got a local MP, then make a fuss to them and say, what are you doing, making sure. Now the rare cancer bill's been passed, can we please make sure we have a focus on this specific rare cancer, and just keep chipping away. I wish there was a broader answer than.
No, I think your words are really, really reassuring. I think it's what we say and where we say it, and if we can have your support to continue talking about salivary gland cancer in the right places, I think that will make the biggest difference. So, with that, I think if we could thank Josh, Fenton, Glynn.